From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
All right, welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. We have a gallon of vinegar for some reason, and this is your weekly podcast about consumption, the original weekly podcast about consumption. With me this week is the person who brought all the vinegar. His name's Sean, and usually he drinks beer, but apparently he's just going straight vinegar tonight. How are you doing, Sean?
Glug, glug. Just getting ready to do the Mario here.
Getting ready to do the Mario.
Yeah.
Right.
Swing your hips from, what is it? Shake your hips? No, that's not even it. I don't know. Something like that.
Are you talking about the kids show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the lyrics to that. I didn't know if we were going to bring that up. There's so much. I don't know. It feels like it's been a minute since we've recorded, so there's actually a few things that we can catch up to prior to our topic for the week. And the topic is so fucking all over the place that it's going to be, this could be a long episode, or it could be a super short episode. I guess we'll see what happens. What have you been watching?
We'll see. I don't know.
You don't know?
Since the last time we recorded, I went on a business trip. I went to Philadelphia, and I didn't really watch much of anything, but I can tell you, this house is very full. It's full, right? It's at the brim.
Ghosts.
No, but maybe. But we're like big avid fans of Dr. Pimple Popper in this house. So we watch it as a family. Well, one of my kids doesn't watch it because she's grossed out by it, but we watch it. You know, 3 of us of the 4 watch the show. And when I was in Philadelphia, kind of flipping through channels at night, there's like this whole industry of shows, and I've kind of known for a while, there's an industry of shows about medical treatments. So there's one, like there's the Toe Bro, which I don't know if you've seen the Toe Bro, but he basically...
No, that grosses me out just by the title.
Works on ingrown toenails, and he pretty much just does one thing. Like, ingrown toenails are his thing. There's My Feet Are Killing Me, which people that do actual, like, podiatric, I guess, surgery, where they correct, like, hammer toes and bunions and warts and all types of shit like that. And I didn't know what this one was called because I just kind of caught, like, fits and starts of it. Like, I didn't look up what it was called. But it's a woman, a doctor, who does surgery. She specializes on conducting surgeries, plastic surgery, on people without putting them under. So I saw a guy who, I guess he lost a bunch of weight, or he got liposuction or something, and he was just awake, laying there on the table. He's like doing FaceTime calls with his mom, and they're talking about, just shooting the shit about the weather. Oh, it's supposed to snow this weekend? Crazy. This other lady lost over 140 pounds. So she had a bunch of loose skin, and she described a situation where she went to the doctor. She had a surgery scheduled to remove her torso's loose skin, and she had the IVs in and everything, and she decided she was too scared. She didn't want to go through with it, so she pulled out of the surgery. It was this big regret in her life. She found this doctor, one of the few doctors in the country that will do plastic surgery without putting you under. And she had this skin removed while she was awake. I mean, they numb you with lidocaine and whatever else. But they took like these big flaps of skin off of her, and the doctor's like, "Oh, I just took this off of you." And it's this big sheet of skin. And they're like, "Oh, it's just amazing." Like, I've had a bunch of procedures in the last 5 years. I don't want to be awake for any of that shit.
I was going to say, I don't think you want them parading whatever they just removed from you in front of you.
Well, it's kind of a common thing for Dr. Pimple Popper. She'll show you the lipomas and the cysts and all the cottage cheese looking shit that they took out of you. I will never forget. There was an episode. I feel
like that's different than if they like skin you and be like,
true,
here's your torso.
There was a Dr. Pimple Popper episode where the guy had this big growth on his knee, and he was like a flight attendant or flight attendant, I guess is what they're called now. And it would make him upset because he would bump his knee on the aisleway on the seats. And I will never look at cottage cheese again the same way. They cut this thing open on this guy's leg, and like, I don't know, a pound of cottage cheese like flowed out of his knee. And I was like, oh my God, that is so but I can't stop watching it. That's really the only thing I can remember that I watched of any substance. I did start watching the Netflix series Beef with Stephen Yeun and Ali Wong and some other people, but I'm only like 20 minutes into it, so I don't really even know what's going on yet.
My thought of cottage cheese in media consumption would be related to It's Always Sunny. There's an episode where Charlie's saying, I don't remember where they're at, but he's looking at he's got this like giant, I mean, by giant bowl, I mean, there must be like 5 gallons of cottage cheese in this bowl. And he keeps like poking at it. It jiggles and stuff. And at some point he just says, what is this enchanting bowl of white? And I don't know why, but that always stuck with me. And now I can't see cottage cheese without thinking of it as just a gelatinous bowl of white.
I mean, it's a pretty good descriptor.
Yeah. Speaking of Netflix shows that we started, or I started, but haven't gotten to really, I started watching that show Florida Man, but I've started twice like a moron and then was like, oh, I also have to do, whatever. And immediately like played maybe 10 to 30 minutes of an episode and was like, I have no idea what the fuck is going on this show. So I've now restarted it twice. I'm like, all right, don't start this again until you can actually sit down and at least pay attention and know what's going on before you start wandering around the house and doing other things.
How long are the episodes?
So again, I'm only on the first one. Maybe it changes, but the first one's like 55 minutes-ish. So like an hour runtime, roughly. I kind of hope that it shortens up a little bit after that, but I haven't gotten far enough to know for sure.
I've only seen the description. What is it even about?
I saw the title Florida Man and I was sold, at least to give it a try. It's listed as like a romantic comedy / action thing. Oh no. Okay. I noticed there's some kind of like organized crime type thing going on in the first episode. That's why when I got back to start kind of paying attention, I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck is going on here. So I just kind of stopped. Hopefully next week I'll have a little better handle on what that's all about.
Maybe by then I'll start watching it. Start watching it? Is that the way that English is spoken?
Yeah, I would suggest for a title like Florida Man, you actually do have to pay at least a little attention to it so far. I don't know if it stays that way, but like I said, I've tried twice now, gotten distracted twice, and I'm totally clueless on the show. So I don't really know why I'm talking about it. But I did catch up on the Dusty Rhodes episode of the WWE biographies. I don't know if you've caught that yet.
No, it's on my list. I saw it. It was on there. And that's one that I actually really wanted to watch. I just didn't get around to it yet.
It's one of the better ones of this season for sure. If you haven't watched it yet, I won't go too far into it other than that, but it is definitely, obviously, it's worth watching. But yeah,
he's pretty legendary in the whole thing.
Him doing his little like yellow polka dot dance around the ring. I had forgotten all about that somehow, and I was just oh, this is the best thing ever. I forgot how great this is. Watching this, he's a pretty big dude. I wouldn't call him muscular, and I mean, I'm sure he would, beat the shit out of me, but he doesn't have like the stereotypical physique of a wrestler. He's just dancing around in these yellow polka dot underoos and thoroughly entertaining.
I have a question on that. I have a question for you. Do they cover the polka dot that he had on his stomach?
I don't think so.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I believe so, yeah.
There was this several month, I don't know, not storyline or whatever, but there were several months when he was in WWE, like way back in the day, when he was an active wrestler. I think he had just kind of first come on, and he had this big, like, purple bruise or something on his stomach, like on outside of his gut, and it was there for months. And it was never, like, I don't know how it happened. I don't know if he got, if it happened in the ring, if it happened outside, like some accident. No, that's just the one thing that I will always remember about Dusty Rhodes is that big, like, purple polka dot that he had on his gut.
I don't remember them going into detail about it, so it must not be a long talking point if it was a talking point. So maybe it's related to another thing I watched, which was the documentary called Second Chance, which you're probably aware of this.
I have been waiting to watch this, and I just saw that it popped up on our local media source. And I have been so wanting to watch it. I haven't got to it yet. I was excited to see it there because I've been looking for it for months.
Well, I saw it in there. I was like, what the hell is this? And I looked at the description. I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. I don't know. I don't know if spoils the right thing with the documentary. I'll let you watch it first. I don't
know anything about it. That. Just the premise of it is about a guy who tests bulletproof vests that he's made, right? He's like the originator of the bulletproof vest or something.
What's interesting about that is he starts his company in Walled Lake, which for those outside of the local area, I lived in Walled Lake for like 10 years recently. So this is about as hyper local as you can get for me personally. But for those outside of Michigan, Walled Lake is a area that is about probably, I don't know, 50 feet worth of a city. It's like one of the smallest cities in the area where he is. And it was just kind of neat to see it. Like, I mean, at the point they're showing it, I can't even remember the dates now, but it's easily like 50 years ago at least. And it's just like barren at that point, but it was still kind of cool to see. But we'll revisit that title next week, because if you haven't watched it yet, I don't want to sway you one way or the other on it.
We'll talk about it probably a little bit more in depth next week.
So caught up on a couple movies. If you caught our guest appearance on Featured Creature DTF, I was talking a little bit about Night of the Bums. Night of the Bums is something that I watched. And are you familiar with that one? That's on our local server as well.
News to me.
I think this movie somehow got Tom Waits in it as a bum. I'm not entirely sure how that happened, but it looks like he's not credited. And when you look this movie up on IMDb, unlike Black Devil Doll from Hell or Paranormal Bus, there's no one in the fucking cast credits except for the director of the film. Like, no one wanted to put their fucking name on this movie, which is...
They're not even listed.
Yeah, it has one dude, which I believe is the director, and no one else. Like, nothing.
Okay.
It is essentially... He claims that he found real bums to do this movie. Whether or not that's true, your guess is as good as mine. But essentially, this movie is these random three witches make some sort of hooch that kind of turns all the bums of this local town into cannibals, I guess. And
okay,
cannibal shenanigans ensue.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So I think I just sold this, and we're probably going to have an episode about this at some point. So
yeah, maybe. That sounds pretty cool.
For a movie that's about an hour long, I don't know how it took me two sittings. Oh, yeah, because we had to go record something else. That's why it took more than one sitting to get through. But it's moderately entertaining, and for what's probably like a $1,000 budget for this whole thing, you get a good amount of gore in it, so that it's fine for what it is. But yeah, if you can find it, Night of the Bums, watch that. Yesterday, I put on the movie Creepazoids, which is this not great movie. Just very 90s, like, monster crap movie.
You're mining the well, I guess. Is that the phrase? You're digging in.
Well, there's a big chunk of what I was watching over the last, God, what has it been, like 15 days or 14 days since we recorded?
Something like that. Yeah, it's been a good 10 days at least.
Yeah. So I've had some time to kind of, I haven't got to the big thing yet, so we'll get to that in a second. But Creepazoids is this weird movie where all the women are braless and wearing damp white shirts for some reason on this military base, and this alien-like creature basically growls and occasionally murders things until the end, where it has a baby and they throw it, and it's kind of funny. Not a great movie, but that one is on Tubi if you want to watch that for some reason. Then I finally got around to watching The Menu, which that one I would highly recommend for pretty much anyone. It's not, I've seen again listed as a horror movie, and I'm not quite sure I would call it that, but it is kind of a like fuck with your head kind of movie, if that makes any sense. Dark comedy, maybe, especially if you're like into, the whole foodie thing or whatever. It goes way into a rabbit hole on that, and it really tries to push you into thinking like this one thing is happening, and then it just takes a couple weird turns, and that's never what you get. Not that long a movie, definitely. I think it's on HBO Max right now, or I think that's where it was. I don't know if it's quite in the dregs of the type of crap we talk about on a regular basis, like to justify a whole conversation on, but if you just like a good story, this is a movie worth checking out. We don't usually dwell on good stories. We usually dwell on more Night of the Bums type material, Creepazoids, those types of things.
I had an idea. We need to do an episode, or we should do an episode. We don't need to, but maybe we should do an episode where we talk about some really short, crappy movies and just dedicate like one episode to two movies or something. I know it's kind of hard.
A double feature one?
Yeah, it's a bit of a lift or an ask to sit and watch some of these movies, but I think with something like Night of the Bums that we couldn't, I don't know, maybe we couldn't just do a whole episode on that. Or maybe we can do watch casts.
I think we could do all of the above. I like where your head's at. I like the idea of just doing more. Why not? Then the other thing that took up probably like way too much of my freaking time over the last week and a half is the I guess, docuseries In Search of Darkness. It is 3 5-hour. Well, they come on like DVD sets. I stream them, so I don't know how it's broken up in DVD format, or Blu-ray format, but it is 3 roughly 5-hour documentaries about horror movies in the 80s, all focused on the 80s. It's really cool if you want to hear people like John Carpenter and Tom Savini and, Cohen and all those types of guys talk about not just their movies, but their contemporary movies. Like if you want to hear John Carpenter talk about like Fulci or something like that, you get that in this documentary. So that's kind of cool. Especially once you get to the third of these 3 movies, which is quite the hike to get there. That one just focuses only on straight to video releases. So that one was kind of, by the time I got to the third movie, I was like, I almost didn't start it because I was already 10 hours in. I was like, am I just committed at this point? Or like, do I not have anything else I can watch? But I hit play on it and it's like, this one's all about straight to video. I'm like, oh, fuck, here we go. So I was essentially looking at it, not necessarily looking for like subject matter for this show, because let's face it, we have like a mile long list of all kinds of different things we could cover, but there's always a couple titles, and thankfully more than a couple in a 5-hour documentary that you will see that you're just like, I don't know what the hell that is, and kind of give you something to look into. Biggest critique I would have about it, I'm sure when they started this documentary, they didn't realize they were going to make 3 volumes of it. They probably did one, made some money, did another one, and so on. But what I think would have made it immensely better, or at least more watchable, is to make it episodic. And by that, like, each episode, you get 1981 or 1980 through 1989 in each one. So you get, 10 years in the first one, 10 years in the second one, 10 years in the third one. Especially now that streaming is a thing, and I'm sure that this is probably more effort than it's worth, because obviously people are still buying it the way it is now. If it were up to me, I would recut it so you have, 3 hours of 1981, 3 hours of 1982, and just put them all together. And then you could, it'd be almost more manageable then. Like, okay, today I'm doing 1984 and then I'm done, because this is freaking long, Again, I'm sure that wasn't the plan to begin with, to do this big of a docuseries on it, but that would have made it infinitely more watchable, in my opinion.
Do you think you could just jump in and watch a part? Or do you
Yes.
feel like it's, okay, so it's not something where you felt compelled, like, oh, if I watch this again, like, you kind of mentioned to me a little bit about it yesterday, and it sounded like part 3 would be something that I would be more interested in, and it was like, could I just jump in and watch part 3 about all the direct-to-video and all that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they overlap a little bit, but not to the point, like, they're not really building, one doesn't build on the other, and that you don't need to know what happened in Part 1, 1981, to appreciate straight to video 1981 or whatever year. I keep saying 81 for some reason, but yeah, you don't need one to enjoy the others. They all kind of dive in a little bit differently and hit different. I mean, Part 1 is like mostly the A titles. So it's not Halloween, that was 78, but your stuff like, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, all those big, like, the obvious things you're going to talk about if you're talking about horror in the 80s, that's what that is. And then like part 2 is the stuff that's like, okay, well, we didn't quite go as big. So your stuff would be like, I don't know, Return of the Living Dead or Sleepaway Camp, or things that were like big, but not like blockbuster big, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and then,
that makes sense.
Yeah, 3 is kind of the, the stuff that we usually talk about. So,
yeah, the dregs.
Right. But like I said, if you have 15 hours to kill, or if you like just kind of documentary style stuff, or I don't know, we both seem to like that kind of stuff where we just listen to people talk about other things. Obviously, that's kind of what we do.
It's right in our wheelhouse.
Right. It's worth doing. Just, prepare yourself to be sitting for a little bit, because I think it took me a little over a solid week to get through the whole thing, between like making a actual effort to be like, damn it, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to finish this today. Oh shit, there's 5 more hours of this. But, oh no, it's not so bad. But that's enough about that. Let's talk about our topic. We have a topic.
We do have a topic this week.
So, this movie The title of this movie is currently number 1 in the box office, number 1 on IMDb, and so far has grossed $683 million worldwide. But that's not the movie we're talking about, because that's not how we do things around here. We are talking about the movie Super Mario Brothers from 1993, which also is actually pretty high on the IMDb meter right now. It is currently sitting at number 21 out of question mark, down from number 6.
The old bait and switch.
Yeah. Again, that's what we're going for. Do you want me to read the review first, or do you want me to do you want to hit the plot first on this one?
Read the review first, because I have some supplemental information based on what the plot is on IMDb, but tell us the review.
This is easily the best review you'll hear for possibly any movie. 10 out of 10. Best movie ever, says CED 96877. I watched this movie while disassociating with my bud, and it was the best experience of my life. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. I think that sums up this movie perfectly.
All right. Again, end of the show. All right. So the storyline here, the plot line, or whatever we call this top level paragraph of generally related information about a movie on IMDb.com. This one says, two Brooklyn plumbers, Mario and Luigi, must travel to another dimension to rescue a princess from the evil dictator King Koopa and stop him from taking over the world. My additional piece, that kind of sums it up, but let's get a little bit more into it. 65 million years ago, a meteorite or a meteor, I'm not really sure which is which. I do know which is which, but I don't have the capacity right now to give a shit to look it up. But a meteor hits the Earth 65 million years ago, remember. That pushes the dinosaurs into another dimension where they've become intelligent and they've become humanoid somehow. And
should be in quotes.
Yes, yeah. And they are living their best lives in an alternate Earth. And yeah, I mean, that's the basic storyline or the premise. And then a girl is born out of an egg, and she has a piece of a little rock, and that rock, this girl grows up to be Daisy, Princess Daisy, I guess. Not Princess Peach, but Princess Daisy. And King Koopa sends his goons to the Earth dimension to bring her back so they can take that piece of the rock and reunite the meteorite that crashed into Earth and bring the two worlds together so that Koopa can take over our Earth. Is that fair? Is that a fair summary?
Sure. This movie is so spastic. Like, this movie is probably responsible for an entire generation having ADHD.
Yeah, it's just all over the place.
Yeah.
First we follow Mario and Luigi. They're actual plumbers, and they're going on a job, and they're basically, they're like running out of money because they can't get any jobs, because I don't really know why they can't get jobs. Like,
the
they can't get plumbing
guy,
jobs.
I forget their name.
Scapelli.
Scapelli keeps stealing their jobs or whatever.
Which I don't know how that works, but whatever. So they go to a job site where Scapelli has gotten there first, even though they got a call. And Luigi is played by John Leguizamo. Mario is played by Bob Hoskins. Is it Samantha Morton who plays Peach? Or, I'm sorry, Daisy.
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, Samantha. Mathis.
I keep thinking Morton is, whatever. I don't know who the hell Samantha Morton is.
As long as you don't forget that Toad was played by Mojo Nixon.
Yes, perfect casting, because, what do you think of when you think of Toad? You think of a guy singing song. Yeah, Mojo Nixon, a guy singing songs with a harmonica and guitar, singing anti-Koopa songs. Fisher Stevens is Iggy. You may know Fisher Stevens from Short Circuit, where he plays a racially insensitive Indian person. And some of it, he was the bad guy in Hackers. So he was the virus guy, which, whatever.
Yeah, Richard Edson.
Maybe that's a movie we need. What's that?
You have Richard Edson, who was the garage guy from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And then how could we forget? You have Dennis Hopper, who somehow looks like Donald Trump, who got fucked by a pie.
How did I forget Dennis Hopper? I mean, there's so and special cameo by Lance Henriksen, who's in the movie for about literally 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And he says that he loves plumbers.
Oh, and there's about 50-ish strippers in this movie for some reason, in a movie that's supposedly a kid's movie. So
yeah, that was borderline inappropriate for a movie for kids.
Borderline?
Yeah, okay, it was inappropriate. But anyway, so we digress. Mario and Luigi, they go to this site. Scapelli's already there. It's a dig site for the University of New York, I think. And Samantha Morton, a.k.a. Daisy, is leading an archaeology kind of dig. And Scapelli threatens her, saying, you guys should be cleaned up by midnight or bad things are going to happen. And that's when Luigi takes a liking to her and they go back to the site and get transported. She gets kidnapped by Koopa's nephews or cousins, or they're some kind of relation. And Iggy and Spike, Fisher Stevens and Richard Edson, and they take her into the other dimension. Mario and Luigi come to the rescue. They get sucked into the other dimension too, and good times are had by all.
Yeah, that's one way to.
And you know what I love about Mud? It's clean and dirty at the same time.
Before we go into the negatives on this movie, because there's no shortage of that.
What are you talking about?
I gotta say, there's actually some things in this that, although like from a plot and storytelling perspective, we're not on that yet. For a movie that came out in 1993, the effects in this movie, if you take away the fact that it's supposed to be a Mario movie, the sets that they built for everything on this, the computer effects, the animatronics that they put in this is a really good looking movie. If you can somehow not make it a Mario, it has a lot of stuff in it where it almost feels like they saw the Ninja Turtles movie from, what was that, 1990, 91, a couple years before this, Blade Runner, which I guess the guy who, I don't remember, he was a writer or just like a cinematographer or something. He worked on Blade Runner. So it's almost like you take Blade Runner, Ninja Turtles, sprinkle in a little bit of Mad Max and a little bit of Die Hard and just kind of smash them all together. And you somehow come out with something that looks kind of like this.
I could see that. I don't agree with you necessarily that all the effects work very well. They're very early digital effects.
Well,
like there are a lot of...
I said for 1993.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
But we got to think some of the effects, and they were cutting edge at the time. But when did Terminator 2 come out?
I want to say 94. I want to say 94, but I know this came out 2 weeks before Jurassic Park. So, I mean, obviously there was a much better Dino movie that came out about the same time as this. Terminator 2's got to be before Jurassic Park, right? 91, Terminator 2.
Well, that's even earlier than I thought it was. But
Same.
I've gone back and watched T2 within the last year or two, and the effects, everybody kind of holds the liquid metal Terminator 1000 as being like, whoa, that still looks really good. Some of it looks kind of hokey. I mean, but it still looks pretty good though.
So it looks, I could say the same thing about this movie. It looks like something that looked really, really good in the early 90s. Now, when you watch it in 2023, where you can literally have a computer make things look literally lifelike in so many ways, it looks like something that was, animated 30 plus years ago at this point. Yeah. But
I'm not going to say it looks bad.
It doesn't look bad, but
I will not go so far as to say that it looks good for 93, because we have comparison with, like you said, even Jurassic Park. That's one that people say it still looks good today. Some of it looks kind of shitty. Some of Terminator 2 looks... I
disagree with you on that, but okay.
You don't think any of it looks shitty? Well, let's not get into an argument about special effects from Jurassic Park. We're talking about the goddamn Super Mario Brothers movie.
That's true.
I just don't think the effects are like super great, but I agree. For 93, they look okay. And like I said, they're kind of doing stuff outside the box. I mean, it's not like young Sherlock Holmes fighting the stained glass knight or anything. It's not. That even actually looks better. But
I can almost see what kind of movie they were trying to make. Again, if you take the Ninja Turtles comparison,
yeah,
or even like although this to me looks more like Schumacher Batman, which I think was after this, but
yeah,
the Tim Burton Batman to an extent, it feels like that kind of universe. It's like, it's dark, it's got shit all over the place. They just, kind of went ape shit with neon colors and stuff and said, well, this is what sells to preteens and young adults.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's so crazy about it is that this was Nintendo's big property, and it still is. It's like their premier property, and they had
one of three at the time. I'd say one of two now.
What do you think?
You'd have this, Zelda, and Metroid at the time. I don't know that Metroid still as big as this.
Metroid Zelda was always bigger here than it was in Japan.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, they have Pokemon now and all that shit. But anyways, I can't believe they gave the writers and they just gave them free reign. They're like, oh yeah, we just do it. We don't know anything about movies. You just do what you need to do. And this is what they got. And this movie put them off of doing anything with their property, especially a movie, until now. The thing that's so hard about this not making any sense.
You can't even really compare it to Pokemon because they don't control everything about Pokemon. They control everything about Mario. They control everything about Zelda and all that stuff. But Pokemon is owned by some other company. They just make games. To my
I don't think that's accurate.
I think it is because I think that's why they've made a Pokemon movie. There's like 22 of them.
Oh yeah, the animated.
Yeah. Anyway,
let's not get into the politics because we're gonna go way over our heads really quick talking about the politics and we're already over our head about Pokemon. Never played a single second of a Pokemon game. Anyways, the movie is just so all over the place. It's like a fever dream. It kind of has a little bit to do about Mario and Luigi, but I think the thing is too, 1993, let's say we had like a half a dozen Mario games by that point. They don't have any story in them either.
Yeah, that's true.
How could you expect that this would have how could people expect? Like expectations must have been through the roof. Like, oh man, I mean, by 93, I'm 16 years old, and I really didn't have any I don't know, desire to see this movie when it came out. I didn't even see this movie in the theater initially, but there's just so many things about it. Watching it, and even if you have like a tertiary idea of what Mario's about, you could watch this and know within, I don't know, probably the first half an hour that they're just making shit up. Like it's one of those things, if you haven't seen it, it's one of those movies where somebody got they looked at an instruction manual about the game and they saw that there were characters named things and they looked a certain way. And then they wanted to throw in like, oh, hey, it's Koopa. Oh, that's a Goomba. I don't even know if a Goomba's in this thing.
Yeah, they are. They're the big dudes with the trench coats and that's supposed to be the Goombas. The guys that they de-evolve into or whatever.
Yeah. But a Goomba is the little mushroom dude in the game, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm aware. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how that... Yeah.
Yeah. They look more like the Koopa Troopas or whatever the turtle guys are.
The turtle guys, yeah.
Yeah, they're like a combination. But anyways, they go into this world where all these dinosaurs basically, Koopa's thing is to like devolve, make people stupider so they're easier to rule, basically, right?
Well, being a germaphobe for some reason. I'm not sure where
Dennis Hopper, I wrote a note, he would look so much cooler, and I think it's kind of the look they were going for. His hair is styled to look like kind of like fins. Almost. But I think he would look so much cooler if he had blonde dreads for some reason. Dreads would really fit this character a lot better.
I mean, it couldn't be any worse.
Yeah, true. Yoshi's in the movie as a literal dinosaur. Let that sink in. And of humanoids, everyone else is a humanoid. Yoshi is a dinosaur that like hasn't evolved somehow.
I don't even really understand why they felt the need to bring Yoshi in. I mean, there's so much shit in this movie that you could literally throw half of it out. And I would still say, I don't know why they felt the need to bring in, A, B, and C that they didn't throw out. I mean, it's almost a hard movie to talk about because it is so all over the place. It's like a Jackson Pollock painting, but somehow in movie form.
I'm already feeling like we're all over the place because it's so hard to talk about because it doesn't have anything to do. Because you can't disassociate the Super Mario Brothers movie from Mario Brothers. Because it is supposed to be the thing. But there is no thing to talk about because they're nothing alike and there's no story in the games. So how do you, like I said, how do you build a story about a property that has no story? I mean, the story is just a guy runs and he jumps on things and rescues the princess. Like, you don't even know why Mario's in the world that he's in the games anyways by this point. I don't think that's ever even been said. It's just like Koopa's a bad guy.
I would bet that they probably have some kind of story in them now, but they certainly didn't at this point. I mean, what did they have up to? Maybe the fourth one at this point? Super Nintendo?
Super Mario World, I think. Yeah, the Super Nintendo was
fourth
out.
One, right?
Yeah, give or take.
But that's still just a side-scroller platformer.
And that had the most story in it. I mean, 2 had a lot of story because it's the dream. They're in the dream, and that's when, and I know that's a reskin from a different game. I know that. But at least he's in a dream.
So other notes on this movie, talk about a supreme waste of talent that you had, because you actually have some legit actors. Like,
oh yeah,
Bob Hoskins is a great actor. I didn't really think much of John Leguizamo at this point of his career, but he's definitely matured into a pretty good actor, and he pops up in more stuff. And whether I want, like, he's in The Menu that I just watched, last week. Like, he pops up in more stuff just randomly, and more power to him because he's usually at least watchable, if nothing else. And this is just another thing under his belt that's like, oh, there's that guy again.
I was just gonna say he's very hit or miss for me. Like I've liked him in some roles and I've hated him in other roles.
Totally agree. But I won't, like, if I know he's in a movie, I won't avoid it because he's in it. More often than not, I go to watch a movie and he happens to be in it, is usually how I run into his roles, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you got Dennis Hopper, who everyone talks about him being this, like, fantastic actor, and he can be, but he's got his share of, like, turds, and this might be the shiniest of the turds that he's had. I mean, it's got to be down there. I mean, as a guy who loves Romero movies, I mean, he's in Land of the Dead, and he's not exactly, like, giving his best performance in that, but he looks like he's giving an Oscar-worthy performance in comparison.
I mean, just think if we could have gotten Dustin Hoffman and Tom Hanks as Mario and Luigi.
I don't know if that would help anything. I mean, if you hear the stories about how this script came to, I only want to say came to be because how this script was being rewritten, like, by the scene. I guess, like, you hear stories about this movie where the actors, instead of learning their lines, they just resorted to drinking scotch because they knew it would just change before they went to shoot the actual scene that they were doing. So they just said, fuck it, did that, which is kind of great, but I can't imagine that makes the movie easier to work on.
Yeah, it's almost kind of destined for failure at that point, right? I mean, let's just get trashed. Can't be any worse.
Yeah, well, I don't think it could. It was. I mean, if they're sober, at least at least with them being drunk, they're at least probably having a decent time with all this random shit around them. My notes are kind of all over the place as much as this movie is. Like, I hit a point with this movie where so I'm just going to kind of read through some of the stuff that I have written down, and this will maybe give me an idea of how eccentric this film is. So I start, Brooklyn Dinos is a good start to any movie because dinosaurs have Brooklyn accents. Baby Mario looks like he has a condom on his belly. Plungers on the wall make perfect decor. Pretty sure the music that plays through this music is the same, or pretty sure the music that plays through this movie is the same song that's used in Liar Liar 4 years later. I repeat that this is a waste of Hoskins and Leguizamo. I wrote down a quote, I'm getting arrested for being a plumber. Brooklyn accent.
That's a good, I like that. That's good.
I'm not from Brooklyn.
I couldn't tell.
At this point, I write, God damn it, there's still an hour left in this dumbass movie.
That truth. Let me say, this movie, like, I'm watching it, I just wanted to fall asleep. It is so boring. And you have to wait over an hour to see Mario and Luigi in what you would expect to see Mario and Luigi in their colors. Like, it's this big reveal. They come out in the green and blue and the blue and red. It's like, This movie, you should have done that a long time ago. You should have done that a long
It should be in your opening
ago.
credits.
Just about.
Yeah, I mean, you can revert
while they're
back
running
and
around
start
in New
the
York.
story, but
Yeah, while they're running around in New York driving the car, they should be in their coveralls and they should be the colors that they are in the game. I mean, pay us money. We just came up with that. That would have been better.
Right. Let's see. So then I go, we got dinos, suck at Jurassic Park. How come she never punches Yoshi in the back of the head to make him eat stuff?
Abusing poor Yoshi just
Right.
to get him to do stuff.
And then I put in here, Mario has the best pickup lines. I don't remember what Mario said, but apparently he had a very not great pickup line. Is
Nice shoes.
that what he said? So
I don't know.
how much do you think was spent on set design or costumes for this shit? This movie almost plays like a Schumacher Batman movie. But there is so much batshit insanity in this movie, even for a kid's movie based off a kid's game, that it leaves me numb. These are notes that I'm supposed to be talking about this movie that I put in here. There's a $48 million budget and it grossed $20.9 million.
Yeah. I think word of mouth spread pretty quick that this movie was a steaming pile of shit.
I know when I watched this, I was editing together some of the artwork that we used for this show. So I was kind of half paying attention to it. And even then, I don't know exactly at what point I just stopped kind of really paying attention. Apparently not that long after I said, God damn it, there's still an hour left of this dumbass movie. But that's got to be the biggest among the many, many problems in this movie. Like, you can't even separate it from the fact, it's like you said, you can't separate this from being a Mario movie because it's called Super Mario Brothers. But even if you try to, there's still just, this story is so bad shit all over the place that it's impossible to really follow. And there's not enough interesting stuff happening to at least make you be like, all right, well, let's see where this goes. Like, they, just for the sake of argument, let's say they made a movie where two plumbers wear red and green and time travel to go fight dinosaurs for some reason, and they use plungers as, I don't know, clubs or something. Just off the top of my head, you could say, yeah, this is 1993 Mario movie. There you go, bucko. I probably buy that more than what we got.
Yeah, I just, watching this, I paid attention. I watched this. And I really wish that I've seen it once before and it was enough for me. Like, I didn't need to watch it again. But when the new one came out, I figured maybe it'd be a good time to revisit it. This movie's just so crazy. How would you expect, your audience is going to be like 6 to 10-year-olds probably, like primarily. It doesn't make any sense. You would go to see a Mario movie because you want to see Yoshi, you want to see Mario, you want to see Luigi, you want to see Toad, you want to see the princess. You want to see him jumping around. You want to see him
Bowser. Not Koopa.
You want to see Bowser. You want to see Koopa. Same person. You want to see them solving puzzles, getting mushrooms and getting bigger, like the magic, I don't know if they're called magic mushrooms, but the red mushrooms to get bigger, fire flowers, all that stuff. Instead, you get a fat guy and a smaller guy. They don't jump throughout the movie. When they do jump, it's just like they filmed them on a floating platform and they wave. They do like queen waves as they go by. They have to wear special boots to jump to do these things. There's none of the weapons, unless you consider a super scope to be a weapon, because that's what Hopper uses as the de-evolution gun.
It's also what they use at the end when they get him or whatever. Anyway.
I mean, you just don't see anything that you would expect to get out of a Super Mario game or anything based on the property. It's like I said, it's like the writers, the final script, I guess, the final script writers pulled out the manual to a Super Mario Brothers game and saw artwork and just tried to kind of base it on that. But, name characters after stuff. You have the bomb or whatever, the little bomb thing that shows up a couple times. The wick burns on it for like 20 minutes of the movie before it does anything. And Lance Hendrickson is King Koopa, right? Because isn't Bowser is the name of Hopper. Yeah. Lance Hendrickson, he's just a big ball of snot for like at least 20 minutes of the movie when you finally figure out, or you finally find out that all this fungus that's growing all over the place that they're trying to spray for is the king that's gotten de-evolutioned or whatever. You actually, they have the opportunity to show outside of the city, which, okay, I didn't know they were in a city at all in the first place. I mean, it's not New Donk City. It's a different city than that. But everything...
Did you say New Dong City?
No, Donk.
Oh.
New Donk City. So there's like in the newer Mario, Super Mario Odyssey, they go to a city where Mario actually exists with other humans. And it's like New York, but it's called New Donk City.
New Dong City would almost make this movie even more.
Big Dong City. Mario, he cheats on his girlfriend, kissing Big Bertha, which the Big Bertha thing, just, it pissed me off the first time I saw it. It pissed me off the second time. It's just this big fat lady who takes your shit. Fat lady, give me my shit back. Don't take my fucking rock. It's not yours. It's not nice. Don't do that.
Doesn't he do like the jello shot thing out of her chest to get it back or something like that?
He tries to, yeah. He's like, and that's, really?
Again, this is a kid's movie. Yeah. I don't know. Do we want to continue to rant? I don't really have a whole lot to add at this point. Like, I feel like we're already circling the drain. I think we started circling the drain as soon as we started talking about this movie. So I don't know how much more we can really go.
Honestly, we probably started circling the drain when we talked about watching this movie for this podcast. I mean, it's a steaming pile, and that's putting it nicely.
Well, let's hot dog it up then, because I don't really have too much to add here. So do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So although this movie is, like I said, for the time, it looks fine. It has some effects that went a long way to kind of help do things for better movies that would come. At the end of the day, this movie is borderline unwatchable. It's certainly unpaid attentionable, if that's words. Probably not. there's really not a whole lot of things you can say about it that are positive, other than you'll see actors that you really like from really great films in really, really bad roles in this. I can't give this much more than like 3 hot dogs out of, I don't know, 10 de-evolved plungers. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Plungers.
It's the best I can do. That might be more entertaining than the actual movie is saying de-evolved plunger. If you are a Mario completist for some reason, go ahead and watch this. I think if you're asking my opinion, spend 15 hours watching In Search of Darkness, because although that will put you through the ringer because it's 15 hours long, it's infinitely more interesting than Super Mario Brothers from 1993.
So for me, I think, again, the whole premise of the original Super Mario Brothers games, it's just really thin. And then when you try to make a story out of like this half dozen or however many games there were in the series to date, which didn't have a story either, is just, it's pure lunacy. There's no way this would ever please anyone. There's just not enough story or not enough things to build off to say, you know, this is for the 6-year-olds, this is for the 10-year-olds, and this is for the parents. You're not going to please everybody. You're not going to please the video game fanatics. You definitely wouldn't please the normal movie going public with this movie. I think people were probably so hyped for the Mario Brothers movie that when it came, you know, it came out, it didn't take long to figure out that this movie was just pure trash. To the filmmakers' credit, they tried their best, I guess. I guess they tried their best to incorporate little elements of the game. Like they had the Goombas, they had the fireball guns, no fire flower, they had the bombs. But when you throw it all together, it didn't make any sense. I realized that there was a big run on video game properties. You know, around this time we had like Street Fighter, the movie came out as well. But I could live happily, never, ever, ever watching this movie again. I would give it 3 little shrunken lizard heads out of 11 hot dogs.
I was laughing because, so one of my first jobs when I was a wee one, I worked in a movie theater. And we would see people come in every week that it didn't matter what was on. They'd come in a couple times over the weekend and they would just watch whatever.
Sure. I
would love to see, because it was a lot of times it was senior citizens, stuff like that. Like these, you know, they don't care. They just want to go. They want to go to the show, see a story. I'm trying to imagine the, you know, so this is 1993, the George Bush Reagan Republican who just goes to the movie every weekend because he has nothing to do, and he somehow wanders into this movie and just gets pissed. I was not working in a theater when this came out, but I would have loved to watch that reaction as people just leave this like theater just livid. So.
My favorite anecdote about going to the movies and just picking one randomly to watch because it's something to do is my in-laws were going to the movies. You know, they were going to the movies on a Friday or whatever just to see them, you know, hey, let's get out of the house, let's go see a movie. They went to the theater and they paid and watched You Got Served. That was the movie that they went and decided that week that was the movie that they were going to watch.
Similar concept.
So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've only done that like once or twice and it's not been great results, but it's almost like, that's not to go on a tangent about this, but it's almost one of the things that sucks most about how movie theaters price stuff now. It's almost like cost prohibitive to even want to do that. Like, oh, I want to get out of the house and spend an hour doing whatever. And it's like, I pay $20 to sit here and be annoyed by this dumb shit movie.
Take a gamble, basically.
Right. With Koopa and have some like kid pissing on my chair in the process. Like,
why do you have a kid on your lap pissing on your chair?
And bring him with me. He just showed up. So tangents aside, I think that's all we got for this week. This movie is trash. It somehow skated by crummy movie March and just moved its way into shitty movie every day territory. So
I legit feel sorry for the people in the movie. Like you said, there are so many people that are good actors that have done really good work that could have probably done a really good job if they had something to work with. And I think Hoskins had even said so much because he's not with us anymore. But it was like a paycheck movie for him. You know, it was like, my kid really loved Mario, so I wanted to be in this movie that he really liked.
I was going to read a quote from Dennis Hopper about it because he was talking about, so I'm not going to read it now, I'm just going to paraphrase it. But his kid at the time, he was like 6 or 7, something like that. He asked him why he was in this horrible movie. And he said, because dad needs to buy you shoes. And then his kid replied to him, I don't need shoes that badly. And yeah, it's kind of a shame because, you know, you can almost the three leads in this movie, almost every one of them has at least one or two movies where you could just say, this is maybe not my favorite movie all time, but it's up there. Like Who Framed Roger Rabbit is another kids movie that I would say is, although it's not one of my favorites, I'd say it's arguably one of the better movies made of its decade. Probably in the top, I don't know, 20 or something like that.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like that much, but if you think of how many movies come out.
And how many good movies came out in that decade.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic, and then you follow it up with this. Talk about letting something down. So, I don't know. We're rambling again. This movie sucks. Fuck it. Go follow us on social media stuff. We're at Dewey Pod Monster. Go to our website where you can see other crap. It is crap.town. That's where all our episodes live. You can leave us feedback. We need to get better about reading that feedback, and I forgot to put anything down today, so not going to do that, but we'll do it soon. And then follow Sean, where Sean's going to tell you to look for his stuff that is way better quality than this shit.
Not going to do that. You can check me out. I talk about Michigan beer, talk about all that good kind of stuff. We've been doing a lot of interviews, talking to people about their breweries and about their beers. You can find out all about that at youtube.drafttherapy.com. You can follow me on the social media networks if that's your thing as well. And you can find me at Draft Therapy.
All right. I think that's all we got. I'm going to go watch Cheers and fall asleep on my couch. You got anything to add before we peace out of here?
I'm going to have tears and fall asleep on my couch.
You're going to have tears and cheers?
Cheers and tears.
See, we're going to have a new sub podcast called Tears and Cheers. So
we should do a Cheers watch thing where we recap Cheers episodes.
Just a podcast.
We would have a lot of content. We would be going for decades.
I don't know if we'd go quite that long, but we'd go for a while. Anyway, that's all we got. We're babbling again. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great week.
Do the
Cheers.
Mario, swing your arms from side to side. Come on, it's time to go. Do the Mario. Take one step and then again. Let's do the Mario all together now. You got it. It's the Mario. Do the Marios.
Bada boom.
Bada bing, bada boom. Hey.
Hey, oh.